creatives, welcome back to my channel. I'm Angela, a graphic designer and an illustrator. If you can hear some noise in the background, I do apologize. My neighbors decide to have a whole bunch of deliveries all day long. So if you can hear that, I'm sorry. Today, we are going to be diving back into Adobe InDesign, and we're going to make fun, bold type layouts. Let's get into the program. I have it open right here. We're gonna lay out some type around a company called Rosebuds. I have the lookbook, if you will, for this company. So this is Rosebuds. This is a floral company. It's springtime, so I thought it was appropriate. Rosebuds. This is a very simple layout. Title, tagline, teeny tiny bits of information sometimes on a really bold photo. Now, when you start in InDesign, there are some setups that you can apply for your documents. This is a 8.5 by 11. This does get cut down when it goes to print. So 8.5 by 11 artboard, it gives it to you in picas. This is just the default picas. I have 5 facing pages. You can see all of this in the properties panel. Your properties panel may not be on the right. I have mine on the right. We're gonna create a few type layouts. For my next video, we'll get more and more into experimental layouts in InDesign, but this is the basics. In InDesign, you make pretty much anything for print. Book covers, magazines, brochures, flyers, posters, all that kind of thing. Anything you see in print gets done in InDesign. That doesn't mean that everything that you see is done only in InDesign. Of course, there are things that are done in Photoshop and Illustrator to kind of like help with the creativity part of this. So this I did completely in InDesign. So let's move on from the cover to our first page spread. A page spread is 2 pages. All of the photos I'm using, by the way, are from Pexels. I will have it linked in the description box down below. It is a wonderful, free, donation-based platform where you can get really good, high-quality stock photos without them really being stock photos, because they're all provided by creators, which I just find amazing. And you can follow some people on there as well. I follow a few. I really like their photography. When it comes to type, you can do lots of things with type. I mentioned in my previous video, if you haven't seen it, I'll link it here. I mentioned in there that you can do drop caps. I very minimally went over what drop caps are. I did use a 4-column based grid, is what it is called, as 4-column layout for my pages. I even used it on the cover, as you can see here. The way to get that is you can go up to layout in the top toolbar, go to margins and columns, and pop-up window will come up. For margins, that's the space in between. For my columns, I have 4, and for the gutter, I have 1. I always like to start with 4 or 3 columns. Like, that's the main starting point, I would say. This is what's called the bleed, this right here. So this line here, this reddish pink line, yours might be a different color, but I think generally they're all red or / pink. This is the bleed. Anything that bleeds off the page to make up for that offset printing that sometimes happens. You always want to make sure that you take your images to the bleed line, which is off the printable page, just in case, because the worst thing that could ever happen is for you to have a full image like this one filling up a page and it gets offset printed and you have the smallest like 2 or 3 millimeters of white line space all like on one edge that's not supposed to be there, and it looks terrible. It's happened. It happens. Make sure you put your stuff to the bleed line. In these columns, you have gutter space, so you can either fill that up or leave it open. It's up to you. This next page, it doesn't have a photo, so we're gonna have some fun with some type. I mentioned the drop caps. We're gonna place one. Let's choose our type tool over here on the left toolbar, create a big text box. For this text box, I'm going to drag it across, I'm thinking I wanna drag it across 2, 4. Let's drag it across all 4. Sometimes you wanna do this, sometimes not. It depends on the information. Since I don't have any actual copy that I've created, I'm going to go to the type option in the top toolbar, go down to the bottom and select fill with placeholder text. Filling with placeholder text is literally text that doesn't mean anything. I think it's actually in Latin. If you read Latin, it means something. But basically, it's just text that has nothing to do with what you're designing. It's just there so that way when you do insert your copy, you will have a place to put it in, basically. So let's turn this first letter into an R. That's quite a bit of text. I don't think I want that much. So I'm just gonna pull this up. For this first letter, select the type tool, highlight it by clicking and dragging over it. Go over to the properties panel. If you scroll down into the paragraph section, there's going to be an option for drop caps. The drop cap is this symbol over here. If you cannot see this, go to Window, Properties, and click on it, and then you'll be able to see this. For this drop cap, there's usually 0 because it's defaulted to 0. I'm going to click and add a massive drop cap to about 11 points. It's completely up to you how big you want your drop cap to be, but since I want this to be bold, because we're dealing with florals, I'm gonna make it quite large. Press Control semicolon, or I believe it's Command semicolon on Mac. You will be able to see there is some weird spacing going on right here. So that's a little too tight. So we want to fix that. And the way to fix that is within character options under the properties panel. It's called tracking. So I'm going to increase the tracking by about 20. I think 20 is good. You do have to highlight the drop cap or the initial cap, if you will, before you do that. And it just gives you a nice spacing between the drop cap and the rest of the paragraph. So let's add a few more type fillers at the bottom just to balance out the page. Let's take our preview mode off and go back into design mode by just pressing Control semicolon or Command semicolon for you all. Click and drag 2 text boxes here. Use our selection tool. I'm going to select both of them. Go back up to type, fill with placeholder text, and it fills both of them. For this R, since it is not in the same typeface as the cover, I'm going to turn it into the same typeface as the cover. Let's see. I need a little bit more space. Does it change the spacing here? Oh, right. This is kind of what we're starting off with. So let's put an image in the center here. Whoa, and of course our image is humongous. The images are acting quite differently here in InDesign than they normally do in programs like Illustrator and Photoshop. It's a very different type of program. There is an outside bounding box to the images that allows for more customization to happen. So if there's a portion of the photo that you don't want, you can double tap into the photo and you can see that there is a secondary outer box. We can actually pull this into different places and get the correct spacing that we want within the container box. There is the image box and then there's the container box. The container box contains the image box is the image itself. You have a little bit more room to mess with the photos here in InDesign. There we go. So we can have a layout that is very simple like this, where it has some elements in the center and then you have text surrounding. But you can also increase these by holding down Shift and Control or Shift and Command. You want to hold them both down because if you just do one, it pulls the containing boxes. It doesn't actually resize the images. So you want to hold down both. In my previous video, I showcased text wrapping. So let's text wrap around these images. So I'm going to select both of these elements and then both text boxes. Text wrap is a separate window. So if you cannot see it, go to Window at the top toolbar, choose text wrap. Again, mine is set to a keyboard shortcut. So I'm going to text wrap around bounding box. In the properties panel, select both of these and to mess with the spacing a bit here and there. Since we're using this yellow color, you can always highlight your drop cap and make it the same color as the imagery that is within the page, just so everything is connected. I highly suggest doing that. It's quite fun and it makes everything flow nicely. This is what we have so far. We have the cover and our first page. Now, typically when it comes to publications like this, you would have page numbers and such like that. So I'm going to take this Spring 2022 from the cover, and I'm just going to copy it right down here. And this is technically going to be page 2. This showcases something that happens quite often when you are designing. This doesn't need to be 18, this should be 12. The text within the container box, I mentioned container boxes earlier. The text within the container box is usually a lot smaller than the container box itself. So how do we fix that? Very simply, you right click on the text or the container box itself. There is an option in the pop-up window called fitting. Now in this fitting selection, there's only one option. It's fit frame to content. And I have this set to a keyboard shortcut. This is how you find it, and you can set a keyboard shortcut for yourself unless there's one already defaulted for you. What it does is it takes the container box and fits it to the information that is inside of it. So in this case, page 2. Pull this all the way over here and set it on the column lines. It's looking quite good so far. Now we have image-based page 3. I'm just gonna do some fun letters all over the place that just says bloom, because the whole message behind rosebuds is life in bloom, so florals blooming around your life everywhere. Why not in your food as well? So choose our type tool. Let's click and drag and make some letters. We're going to use that same typeface I've been using. I'm using a typeface that I downloaded. It's called Ice Cream Standard. And I just thought it was really, really funny that it's called Ice Cream. I'm going to increase my container box until I'm satisfied with the size that these are. I'm going to do the fitting option. Take this and duplicate it. There is a shortcut for duplication in all of these programs. It is literally holding down the Alt or Option key and clicking and dragging while holding it down. So let's turn our grids and guides back on. This is where this gets more fun and more interesting. You don't have to stay within the confines of the page all the time. There are rules to this, but when it comes to more experimental layouts like this one, I am playing with the amount of balance that's here. With publications, especially when it comes to being printed, you have to keep in mind this center area right here where the two pages meet, because that area is very important. There is a what's called a fold line. When things get printed and then get glued together, bound, there is a area that you don't want anything that's supposed to be readable in that area. So you don't want to go anywhere in between this section when it comes to information. Keep the B over here. I'm going to line it up between these two columns. Make sure that everything has a balance, it has a movement to it. So I'm kind of doing like this Z pattern through here, since the spoons also create a Z pattern. They kind of like flow with each other. Now this one, I know we started with yellow, and the next page we have blue. So I'm going to take the color of her hair from the next page, as I'm jumping ahead a little bit. Save that as my swatch by just clicking and dragging it down into the swatches panel. Select all of these letters that we created and make them blue. There is a main difference in InDesign in comparison to Photoshop and Illustrator when it comes to filling text. Like I just showed here, if you select all of the container boxes and then fill color with a color, it's going to give it a background fill, which we don't want. Instead of selecting the container boxes, you want to select all the letters. So this can be a little time consuming, but it does make a difference when it comes to selections in InDesign, because selections in InDesign are completely different. You can also create a shortcut with this by using your character styles. And character styles basically means taking a set of rules that you set in place and applying them to instances. In this case, we have the word bloom. If we go to our character styles panel, which you can find underneath window under styles, and then you can select character styles, object styles, paragraph styles, all the styles. In the panel, there is a plus sign at the bottom where it says create new style. You click on that and it will create character style 1. If you double click into that, then it comes up with a pop-up window. and you can rename it if you want. Under basic character formats, you can choose what you want. So the font family, size of the font, even go further into this, advanced character formats, character color. So it'll set all of this. You can select OK. If I wanted to add another letter, I'll add an S, select the S, and select the character style. Let's increase this container box because it doesn't want to show it just yet. And it will apply it to your character. Same thing goes for paragraph styles. This color seems to be a little bit too dark, so I can increase the lightness of it. Instead of selecting all of these letters again, we can go into character style 1, go to character color and select the new color, press OK. It will update your main character style, so that way you don't have to do all of that work all over again. So this is how we are looking. This M I'm going to pull down just a bit more. We can actually make these letters a lot bigger, change our character style, go into our basic formats, and instead of 160 point size, I can make it 170. And it changes all of them. As you can see, they all disappeared because their container boxes are like, whoa, what happened? Pull on the container boxes until it reveals all of them and adjust them all. There they are. Select all the container boxes, press our fitting shortcut. We have quite a few fun layouts here. There is another one here that I forgot to do. Can you guys guess what I forgot to do? I forgot to add the page. Press our Alter option after clicking on the container box for page 2. Let's click and drag. I'm gonna hold down Shift as well as Alt or Option. Drag it over. Instead of this being yellow, choose our type tool. It's always easier to do this in the properties panel just because you have the swatches right there. I'm gonna select our blue. You don't always have to make it change colors, to be honest. You can keep it just black, but I like to sometimes change the color as we go along. And this is how we are looking so far. Very colorful. For this one, I want to do a very bold letter like we did here with very little information. So let's turn our columns back on. All right, type tool. It's going to be 1 column. So let's just make it 2. 2 columns. Let's do our handy dandy type and fill with placeholder text. It does default to our previous character style. So you can do character styles both with baseline text and also with title text and secondary text as well. There's lots of different areas where you can add character styles. I'm going to make all of this white. The color for white is 6Fs, and the only reason I know that is because I did a whole video about hex codes. If you guys haven't seen that, I will link it. Hex codes are a color language, or it's like a code color language basically. It's very helpful in instances like this where InDesign has a very different setup for your colors, so it makes it a little bit tricky. And let's go back under properties, and I'm going to do that initial cap. Let's do a 6. For this one, I'm not going to do the character style only because it's going to go crazy. You can set up a character style for initial caps / drop caps. It can do all of this for you, which I highly suggest you do because it saves you a lot of time, especially if you're going to work with a lot of pages. But for this case, I'm going to just do it by hand. There are instances where your drop cap is at the top where there's nothing else with it. Hold down Shift and tap Enter for as many lines as you had made the drop cap go. Did that 7 times and it makes this really beautiful and bold statement here. Really works well if you have an image like this one where there are bold elements and you need some boldness to draw the eye to the text. So that is one of the only areas I would suggest to do it. And then of course we're going to take our page number, select this, make it white to follow the color of the text in this page. It's going to be page 4. We love all the details. All right, we have the main cover layout, which was layout number 1. We have a secondary layout with a massive drop cap. Third layout is this fun pattern characters all the way around the page. And then we have this one where our initial drop cap is standalone by itself with all the information underneath on a bold photograph. The next one is going to be something very simplistic. I have not gone through the pen tool on InDesign. Now, I know some of you are probably like, really? The pen tool? You're really gonna make us do the pen tool in InDesign? Well, there are options where you would want to, and this is one of the options where you would want to, what's called type on a path. Type on a path is quite fun, and this photo really allows it to be showcased. I'm gonna switch my color over to the stroke instead of the fill by selecting this double-headed arrow, bendy arrow thing over here on the left toolbar. Select pen tool. This is gonna be very, very simple, so don't you guys worry. Draw a path by just clicking dots. Tap, click, tap, click, tap, click, tap, click, tap, click. Off the page. We can also fix these points because I made a little bit of a mess of this. Tap the points, select them with this, what is typically called a white direct selection tool. However, it's also called a point selection tool. Let's have this path follow the tops of these flowers. Let's not do too drastic of changes of direction though, because there will be type on this. Okay, there we go. We can't just use our basic type tool. Click and hold on the type tool. You will see that there is a type on a path tool. Click on the path and it will let you know that you can click on the path because there will be a plus sign next to your cursor. For rosebuds, let's just do the word refresh. And as you can see, my path did not work out so well for the letters here. So choose our point selection tool, select our points, and let's smooth them out. You can also mess with the spacing of this. You can also drag these handles and it will change up how everything is placed and just do some minor tweaks here and there. So we can have something that looks like this. Instead of it being the blue color that we used previously, change it to the color that kind of goes with the page. You can use an opposite color for it to stand out. For instance, if you wanted the yellow, we could even change it to yellow. That actually looks really good. Make sure that the information in between this gutter space over here where the two pages meet isn't vital information. If there is a word like this that goes across the page, that it's still readable, even if certain ligatures and pieces of the text are kind of like cut off. I have the container boxes showing even in preview mode, but we can take those off under view, extras, and go into hide frame edges and it will take those away. You can also go into view and instead of a normal screen mode, you can go into presentation. This usually has like a shortcut to it so you can see the presentation on the screen, which is really fun. So this is our cover, page 2 and page 3, last page spread, page 4 and page 5. I also realized that I didn't do something, so I'm going to do that right now. Did you guys notice what I missed? It's changing this path line. I didn't change the path line to no strokes. So let's select the path line, go into our stroke in the properties panel and choose none so it doesn't show up. There we go. Little minor details, guys, little minor details. Those are our bold type layouts. I hope you all enjoyed this. I hope you all liked the layouts. You can apply these layouts yourself to your own work. Definitely try out the drop caps. Those are always fun. Definitely mess around with color because color is another thing that helps text stand out, especially white text on a dark background. Just make sure it's legible. I hope you all enjoyed this video. Give it a thumbs up if you liked it. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I will be doing a lot more InDesign videos if you guys want them. And I will see you all soon, creatives.